Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. I got a good one for you today. You guys know how much I love talking my linebackers. I got one of the greats. I got Patrick Willis, former linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers, joining me tonight. But before we get to Patrick, let's talk about your Philadelphia Eagles. A 32-6 win over the Atlanta Falcons last week. And I know what everybody's going to say. Well, it's just the Falcons. Hey, listen, if you're on a team of the 1,696 players that are in the NFL, okay, you're a good football player. And you might not have the best team, but you got some great players out there that's getting it done, okay? Let's not minimize what these young guys did last week. Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Jalen Rager. All these guys, played well last week. They stepped up in a situation where everyone thought, that the team would be stepping backwards in some sense just because, they didn't play a whole lot in the preseason. Hey, I was one of those guys. I felt like, when you got these young guys, they need to play in the preseason to kind of get their feet wet and figure out where they're going. The offense, got off to a good start, nothing great. The defense could not handle the running game of the Atlanta Falcons in the first half. They ran for 110 yards on the Philadelphia Eagles in the first half of the football game with a running back acting like, with a wide receiver, I should say, acting like a running back, okay? Second half, they come out, they shut them down to 14 total yards in the run game. Big plays across the board. I think we can put to rest all the concerns about Jalen Hurts, and I know it's just one game, but let's not talk about the accuracy. Let's not talk about the decision making. Let's not talk about the mechanical flaws after what you saw last week and the decisions that he made and the throws that he made. Let's move on and talk about his growth as a franchise quarterback. I want to touch on Miles Sanders because, he had a good game in the second half. The problem is, I think he needs to be more of the game plan in the first half. I don't know how many of you guys watched and what you saw in this game. Miles Sanders looked electric. I mean, he looked like a completely different running back running the football in the second half of this football game. Now, I don't know whether he's motivated because he's got Kenneth Gainwell breathing down his back right now, but the way he ran the football, they can really make this offense go in the most positive of ways if they give him the ball and he continues to run the way he ran. I like what I see in Kenneth Gainwell. They create a lot of different options for him, a lot of different problems, for defenses. Whether you bring him in on first down, I'd like to see Kenneth Gainwell and Miles Sanders on the field together, in the backfield together, and the options that you now have when you have both of these guys. Miles is catching the ball a little better. You got Kenneth Gainwell, who you can run in the backfield, who you can motion out of the backfield. You can also take Kenneth Gainwell and put him in one-on-one situations against linebackers and safeties, and this kid is going to win. Great, great addition to this Philadelphia Eagles offense. Let's talk about the sloppy play on the defensive side of the ball. Like I said, the Atlanta Falcons just ran all through the defense. The linebackers didn't look impressive. The defensive line didn't look like they want to play. And I give John Gannon a lot of credit because he went in at halftime and made adjustments. He made adjustments on the fly. They played some Eagle defense. They played some 3-4 defense. They played some 4-3 defense. They played some 3 down linemen defenses. And they had multiple sub packages until he began to find his footing and find what they needed to do to be able to slow down that running game and basically shut it down in the second half and create the pressure. Yes, this defensive line is going to have to, carry this defense. But at the same time, the linebackers are going to have to step up and start playing the run better. And our safeties are going to have to be much more involved in everything that goes on. No doubt about it. This defensive line was dominant in the second half. Ridgeway, Hargrave, still waiting for Fletcher Cox to show up, but when he's drawing double teams, that means the other guys are going to eat. Love what I saw out of Brandon Graham, what I saw out of Derek Barnett, what I saw out of Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat continues to apply the pressure on Derek Barnett for playing time. No matter who it is that they play against, if you're playing against teams in the NFL, every team has got great players on their team. You can't fault the Atlanta Falcons with a new head coach and a new scheme, offense and defense and say, well, they're really not that good. They may not be that good, but you know what? They won as many games last year as the Eagles did, and the Eagles came in and essentially blew them out, okay? We'll continue to talk Eagles as we go along, but coming up next, we have the 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers, the combination of a Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance quarterback combination rolling in to the link on Sunday, which seems to me is going to be such a great matchup. And to help me break down what San Francisco brings to the table, I told you guys Patrick Willis, one of the best linebackers to ever play in the NFL. It's been a joy for me as an old-timer to sit back and watch this guy's career. He is retired now, 5-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, and he will be inducted into the San Francisco 49ers Hall of Fame this year. It's my pleasure to bring to you guys to help me chop up this upcoming game one Patrick Willis. My brother, how you doing?
Seth, man, I'm honored to be on. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, it's an honor to be able to have a guy that played, the position that I played. So, me and my linebackers, when I have my linebackers on, those are some of my best shows because we're on the same page. We speaking the same language. I had Ike Reese on 2 weeks ago, man, and we could have went on for like 2-3 hours just chatting it up because, we just on a whole different level. I tell people all the time, the linebacker position is one of the most unique positions on the football field, especially on the defensive side, because you got the big guys in front of you. They got their hand down. They locked and loaded. You got the guys in the back, they on the same string back there, but a lot of times, they got crackers in their mouth. They don't even speak. You like lined up and you looking back at them like, what we in, what we doing,
Right.
We're the hybrid. We're half defensive linemen, we're half DB, and we got to live in their world behind us, and we certainly got to live in those guys' world in front of us in order to get the run taken care of and get off, make sure that they're lined up with where they're lined up. So it's a pleasure for me to have you on, not only to talk about, the 49ers, but I want to start off and tell everybody, what Patrick Willis is doing, man.
Yeah. Well, first, Seth, on just, being the linebacker, especially the middle linebacker, that's what makes us unique, and that's what makes us the general of the defense is because we do have to know the front end and the back end. So, shout out to you holding it down for a while. And then, just honored to be on here right now, in life, man. It's been 7 years since I've retired. Crazy sometimes.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years. Wow.
This will be the 7th year now. I feel like it was just yesterday, I was making the announcement. But, as there's a transition. And so, I've, had my plenty of, ups and, some downs in the process, but that's what makes life, what it is. And so at this moment, just working on, a few things, got a few investments going on that I'm really excited about. One in particular, Coach Tube, that's Coach, and then Tube.com, which is an online coaching platform, which is pretty unique. So, you all can go check that out. And then also at this moment, getting involved in Nirvana Water. And, it's pretty nice thing going on right now. So just that, and then just, doing some philanthropy work, got a couple of projects going on. So just grateful, man, to, be above ground and just keeping it steadfast and trying to keep life simple, man. That's it.
I met the Nirvana guys, man. That project is, to me, is going to be something special. For people who don't know, you'll be hearing about it soon. Nirvana Water comes from a infinite well in New York, but what they do is they add H&B to the water, and the H&B, you guys need to go and do some research. There you go. Get that free pub. Uh-huh. you get that the H&B is good for muscle retention and muscle growth. And I'm telling you, I tried it for the first time 2 weeks ago. It is the cleanest water that I have ever tasted to come out of a bottle. I'm excited about what those guys are doing. And, your involvement in it. Obviously, that's how we connected, through some of the guys that's involved there. And I look forward to, doing some other things as far as that's concerned. But tell me, man, I watched your career and I was really shocked when you retired because I was like, man, this guy's got too much football left in him. What precipitated, the retirement? I know, we live in a different world. You got the concussions, you got injuries. That there are things that's going on in a professional football player's life and world that people on the outside just they don't understand. They can't understand. So when you see a guy, in my opinion, in the prime of his career walk away, the question is, what precipitated that?
Yeah. That's man. I
Hey, and
remember like
listen,
it was yesterday.
if it's personal, listen, if it's personal, just say it is personal. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or trying to put your business out in the street. I'm just, it's just you and me talking. I
Yeah.
see all the people that's in here, but it's just you and me because for me, I was like, man, I'm playing as long as I can play, but
Mm-hmm.
this it's a different generation and guys, play for different reasons. And, when they're ready to step away, that's a personal decision only a person can make. Like I felt like, hey, I got, 3 more years, but, I got this Super Bowl ring now. Peace. I'm out of here. I've done everything I wanted to do. That was the
Yeah.
last thing on the list. But, I always wonder, why walk away when you got so much left?
Yeah, Seth. It was a multitude of things. For me, one of it being personal, another also just being honest with myself, and not only just with myself, but with my teammates, the organization. And I remember, you know, telling myself, as a rookie, I remember asking a few guys, early on. I think it was during training camp. Jeff Ulbrich was one. Derek Smitty, I think Brandon Moore and Bryant Young. And after I finished asking the question I asked the guys, I was like, well, how do you know when it's time to retire? Because, before I ever got to the NFL, I'd always heard it be, staying not for long, not for long. And so, I wanted to know, how do you know, when it's time? There's a beginning, and to every beginning, there's an end. And none of them can answer the question for me. And I just remember saying to myself, and as I've always been since I was a kid, I just me, myself, and I just talked to myself, and I was like, well, man, Patrick, how will you know when it's time? And I say, I guess when I no longer have, that passion, that desire, to go out and give myself, my teammates, everything that, I can give them, then I guess it'd be time to step away and let another step in and do their thing. And I remember after that last injury, as I had so many injuries before, initially I was telling myself as you mentally started telling yourself, I'm gonna come back, better than I left. I'm gonna come back better than I left. But something as the days went by, more and more and more, was just, I don't know, it was something in my gut that was like, man, I just don't have that same desire, that same fire, that same passion. And I used to always see older guys, that would come from other teams or be on the squad, and and you would see them, and sometimes them like they wanted to be there, and sometimes they all grumpy. And I used to tell myself as a youngster, I say, you know what, I don't ever want to be that guy. I don't ever want to be that guy sitting in the locker room. And I'm sure you've seen it at times where you see guys, you're like, man, if you don't want to be here, just go somewhere else. Just get out of here, because I'm always I've always been a big energy, frequency, vibration type of person, and then you have to be honest with yourself. And so, I just remember that day came out. I just felt that, it was best. And Navarro was, I still say this to today, he was the next in line to take that team, that defense, on to where it would go. And it was time for me to, step aside and figure out, what else life had to offer. And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a multitude of things, just that passion, the injury itself, I say, once my feet went, that would probably be the tell. And what most people don't understand, to this day, and I never really shared a lot with, and I share with you and all who's listening, is my right toe was just as bad as my left. And so I wanted to better to, control that narrative and not, you know, come back from one injury. And I see how, I know how they talk about, you start getting on up in age and it's like, man, you injury prone, man, you know what? He was a good old guy for us. And, just so many different things. And I was like, you know what, man, I said, remember being on, I know I'm saying a lot, but I remember being on my knees. And I don't know if you ever remember times like this when older guys would come back and they would speak to you and you would see them come back, and some of the guys I would see look so fragile and frail and just, I mean, they walk in with limps and they go to talk and their hands are all like this. And I was like, wait a minute, man, how am I supposed to fish? When I get older in life, if my hands are like this, like what's the point of, making all that money or, a few more, it was just so many different things, man. So again, just trying to sum it all up, it was just that my desires and everything just wasn't that same fire, same passion anymore. And so I just knew it was time.
Good, good. Listen, I have no problem with that, brother. Man, a lot of guys, there used to be an old saying, you play as long as you can play, and then you steal 2 or 3 years. But the type of money, that guys are making in the NFL now, I see guys that come in, they play 5 or 6 years, they bank some cash, and they like, peace, I'm out of here. And if that's what you do, and that's what your objectives are, there's nothing wrong with that. Two things, 2 questions. The first, you talked about your toes. Did you have surgery on the one toe and maybe not the other, or both?
Yeah. I actually had surgery that was the last injury, and I had surgery on it. And I remember the doctors telling me, I say, you can come back and, get surgery on the other one, when you're ready or when you want to. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, they're saying if you keep on going, you're going to eventually have to come back in, and get it worked on. And I was like, hell no, man. I'm just so I got surgery on one and not the other.
So let me ask you what the injury is, because I had 3 myself on my big toe.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, and it's just when you mentioned it, it like set off a light, because I'm like, okay, I bet you he had probably had the same surgery that I had. So I had on the big toe, I had a spur in the joint, and they had to go in and shave the spur off, because every time you get up on your toes, that joint is supposed to, but when you get that spur, it just jams like this. So when it jams, they got to go in and they got to shave it off. Well, when you shave it off, you got more bones in your foot than any other part of your body, your hands and your feet. So the healing process is calcification. So I had my right toe done twice. I had my left toe done once, and both of the joints in my big toe are fused solid because of the calcification.
Wow, man. Like, wow. So it sounds like you had more, like, more, you almost know more about it than I do. For me, it was almost equivalent to tearing the ACL in the toe, but
Wow.
I had that chronic, like that bunion. Like, so
Yeah.
I like to tell you, it wasn't as bad as most people. I see some people with toes all the way over like this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and I would look at their feet and I'd be like, bro, your feet don't hurt. And they be like, no. I'm like, man, your toe curved like that. I'm like, why the freak does mine
Yeah.
hurt so bad? And I just remember, like, I mean, Seth, it got to the point of where I would have to rub numbing cream on my big toes just to go to practice. And then anytime we had to go play on turf, man, I felt myself praying extra hard, like, Lord, just let my feet hold up today. Like, if you
Yeah.
just allow my feet to hold up today, like, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna ball. But if my feet don't get right in these cleats and I'm on this turf, like, I mean, like you speaking about that pain in mind, like I say, it was just every push off, every stop. Like, Bo would make fun of me sometimes. He would say, "Man, Pete, once you get to going, once you get him in your sight, you gonna get him because you're not slowing down." I'm like, you daggone skippy, the way my feet are set up.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know. Hey,
So,
listen, I know when your feet hurt, your whole body hurt. And what did me in towards the end was, you know, I had the issues, and you know, I would play a game, and then my feet would be, my feet wouldn't heal up enough by the end of, by the middle of the week to actually practice. So I wouldn't like start feeling good until, like Thursday or Friday, and then you go into a game and you play on Sunday and you go through that whole process again. And the coaches are looking at you crazy because you can't practice X amount of days. And, sometimes, you're in the game and somebody step on it. And that's the worst. When somebody step on it with them cleats on the grass, I mean, you got tears rolling down the side of your face, man. And people don't understand, man. And
They
you out there,
don't, bro.
you trying to gut it out and you trying to make it happen, man. But listen, I understand. Now I got it. Now I got it.
Man,
The
that's
question,
awesome. Like that just
it's
made me
crazy,
smile.
man.
I'm like, finally, like I can, like you say, that frequency. I can talk to someone who understands. It's not what you mean your feet. Like what? I'm like, man, I can't really explain it to you. It just them something hurt. Like so. No, that's man. But
there is no doubt about it, man. When your feet ain't right, man, ain't nothing right.
Mm.
I guess people always ask me, do you miss the game? So I'm gonna ask you, do you miss it? I mean, because listen, I loved football, man. I mean, it wasn't just a means to an end from a financial standpoint for me. It was, it was my passion. I love doing it. I love everything about it. I love studying. I love training. I love practice. I love the way I felt after a game, even though, I'm sore and I'm beat up. I love the game, man. And people ask me now, do you miss it? And I tell them, actually I miss 2 days, game day and payday. That's about it, But, if there was, honestly, if there was some way for me to healthily go back right now and play, I think I'd go back and play. I mean, because I love the game like that. So watching you play, when you play at the level that you played, you have to love it, because the only way you can be great at something is you got to immerse yourself in it in a way where nothing else around you matters in order for you to get to a point, where, you're dominant and you can be the best or looked upon as one of the best at your position. So it takes that sacrifice and that commitment. And the only way you can sacrifice and commit is that you love it. So do you miss it?
I get asked that question often, and there are things I do miss about the game. It was, I mean, like you said, I was very passionate about it, and for me, whether it was the teammates, the camaraderie, just the process. I mean, for me, when I was growing up, sports was kind of like that gateway, like to be able to just, get away from, the world and go, play a game that you could just have fun and just, you know, try to be the very best and compete. And so for me, like there is still, those days that, it's still always a part of you.
Right.
However, I just now, had to learn to direct that energy, transfer it, on to, life after, ball,
Right.
because there's a, because that's a big thing itself, just, from, where yeah, I mean, so yeah, so I do miss things about it. And I mean, there's times where I'm like, man, it'd be nice to play a pickup game. I'm not really, not really so much to go and play in front of 60,000 and be critiqued on that level. And it's like, hey, if you ain't getting it done, you fired. Like
Yeah.
but I do like there's certain times where again you just want to go like you play a pickup game of basketball. You just like, man, let's just get a football and we just line up and have fun and just
Right.
enjoy it. So yeah, I do. There are things I miss about it. And then just real quick, I know I don't want to take up much of your time, but this just kind of came to heart, which has been on many of our hearts. Speaking of what I miss about the game, the camaraderie, the brotherhood that you make with the guys that you build the bond with through the most toughest times that most people on the outside never really understand what goes on inside that locker room and the things you go, especially when you ain't winning. And so I say that to say, give my condolences to the Harrelson family. Paris Harrelson, passed a day ago, a couple of
Mm.
days ago, or something it was. And man, he was a tremendous guy, tremendous teammate. Just one of those guys that, you just you don't know, you just say why. You like why. And so yeah, just building those kind of bonds and being around those guys when I left, whatnot, that was one of them things that you do. You miss, first early on, you like, all right, I'm kind of, I'm away, but then all of a sudden you start realizing just what is that feeling, or what it really is when you go inside that locker room. Like I said, you had those and build those bonds that you build with certain guys. So yeah, condolences
Yeah.
to Paris and his family.
Hey, listen, man. I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Because when I retired, that's the thing I missed the most was not being around the guys, having that camaraderie, being around your boys. Um, I get your point. I know how you feel. Um, you know, when I was here in Philadelphia, our defense was, our team, we had a lot of great players on our defensive team. A guy like Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Clyde Simmons, Mike Pitts, Mike Golick, Byron Evans, Wes Hopkins, Andre Waters, you know, Eric Allen, Ben
Wow.
Smith, Izell Jenkins, William Frizzell. I mean, I can just go on and on and on.
Wow.
But I mean, for us, it was like a brotherhood. It was more than a brotherhood because even though they weren't blood brothers, they were, we were all brothers from different, from a different mother, so to speak.
Mhm.
If you was gonna fight me, you had 10 others that you was gonna fight. We ate together, we hung out together, we did everything together. And then when you start losing those brothers, so I lost Reggie, I lost Jerome,
Mm.
I lost Wes Hopkins, I lost Andre Waters. So 4 guys that I lined up right next to for like 5 to 7, 8 years, man. Those brothers ain't here no more, man.
Yeah.
And I guess the tough part about where we are is there's an awareness about concussions and what it does and all of those things, the long-term effects. um, and when I see guys that I used to play with, even guys that I used to play against, I'm like, man, listen, we need to stay in contact, man. you know Chat, call me, I'll call you, let's stay in contact, because I want my guys to know that if something's going on in your world and you need me, I'm here. you know because one of the brothers that I lost, he took his own life. And that
Mm.
one hurt more than the other ones from the standpoint that, you feel like if you could have been there for him, you could have talked to him through this situation and he would still be here. So, when you have that kind of bond, that kind of closeness, it's like, what could I have done to affect change and maybe keeping him alive? Was it because I didn't call him? Was it because we were out of touch? Because you know how it is. You might not see your boys for, 2 years. But those guys that you played with, if he walk in your house right now, y'all, it's just like y'all seeing each other yesterday. You know, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
uniqueness of it. But I get your point, and I know what you're saying. 100%.
Mm.
I miss the guys. I miss being around the guys. I don't necessarily miss the game that much as I miss being around the guys. And when you walk away from the game, you lose that camaraderie, you lose that togetherness. And it's tough for a lot of guys, man, because now all of a sudden you isolated. You
Mm.
isolated away from what you know to be the norm and what you normally do on a day-to-day basis. And now you're trying to figure it all out, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Man, I mean, you said it, and that's what it's been, for me the last 7 years. It really just trying to understand that new walk. I told myself that I would give myself the same amount of years that I, played and gave to the game. Like I would give myself that same amount of time to gather myself again and try to learn who this person is, on the other side of, all of that. And
Mhm.
so yeah, it's been some growth. Been some growth.
All right. So now that my viewers know who Patrick Willis is, and we brought it back to, let's talk some football.
Yes, sir.
These tell me that I want to know, in your opinion, what's the greatest change that you've seen in the game? During my
Hmm.
time, the the game of football was a very, very violent game. And I would assume around the time that you came in, it was still that way. And some people would even say, "Hey, it still is." But you know, as your career went on, the rules changes. begin to shift and change a lot of things. How did that affect how you played? And how did that affect how you see the game through your eyes? Because when I watch it, I'm like, you might as well put some flags on these guys, man. I'm like,
Hey, man, Seth. I mean, you just said it. I mean, honestly, when I was talking about that desire and that passion, it wasn't just, I just fell out of love with football and I just woke up one day and I'm like, man, you know what, whatever. It wasn't that at all. It was exactly what you were hitting on. I remember, one of the reason why I really enjoyed the game of football is because you got to unleash, it was a contact sport. It was gladiators among gladiators, like men amongst men. Well, you're going to find out today how big is your heart. How much you really want this, and it was something about that. And I remember. I think it was my third year, 2010 or 9 or 10. They changed the rule where if you run a slant, the receiver, if you run a slant across the middle, if you hit them, that they're gonna throw a flag on you. It was something like that. It was. It was that's when they very first started messing with the defense.
right.
First it was the tuck rule, I think it was, and then it went into like receivers running in slants and you can't hit them underneath it. I'm thinking to myself like, wait a minute, that was the pride and joy. You knew this was no messing around underneath there. Now it's like, yeah, if you catch it, in college you gotta be worried about sparing. And again, I understand the protection, so I don't want to neglect that. But that was one of the things that I started being like, man, this just ain't the same kind of football that I really enjoyed playing when I was young. Like enjoy like hitting that. Now I hear people saying, if that was in today's game, you would get fined and you would get this and you would get that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I mean, they were still finding back then, but now it almost like it takes, it slows the game down and it just takes a lot of the the ferociousness out of it, like that part that makes you like find out like, are you really a football player, or you just, what I'm saying, like, are you really a tackle football player, or are you just a flag football player? You get to find out these things,
Yeah.
when you can just let loose. So yeah, that
And
was a big thing for me.
the crazy thing about it is you can see it. You can see how the rules have made defensive players passive.
Hmm.
Listen, not everybody has the wherewithal, in their mind to reason that guy got the ball and I'm gonna run as fast as I can and I'm gonna slam my body into him and run through him. Not everybody's wired like that. You know what I'm saying? But the
Hmm.
way that the rules are put in place now, the problem with the game, in my opinion, is, guys don't know how to tackle anymore. Guys are reluctant to tackle, and the NFL has pretty much put all the advantages within the hands of the offensive side of the ball. Listen, the big hit, that was intimidation. If that wide receiver wanted to come down in there and I could put a forearm on his helmet or on his shoulder, now
Hmm.
I'm in his head, and sometimes for offensive players, it's about getting in their heads. People think that trash talking is just trash talking. No,
Hmm.
trash talking is mental warfare. Okay, because if I'm lined up over a tight end that I know that I can dominate, or you line up, over a guard that he really don't want none, and he don't want none, I'm gonna give him a little bit, and I'm gonna give him a little chatter, because if I can
Hmm.
get him to think about everything else except for what he's supposed to be doing, I've given myself an advantage. If I can hit a guy and make him think twice, if I can just hear a little, then I know, I got it. He ain't coming in here. Next time he coming in here tipping. So now I got a competitive advantage. They've taken all that away from, the defensive side of the ball. I mean, you got linebackers that, I can't remember what you played at, but you wasn't no small linebacker. I played at 245 myself,
Hmm.
So you got these little linebackers, they out there trying to fight against 330, 340-pound offensive linemen, and they win 225. You can't win that war. You can't win that war.
Yeah, you're gonna get beat up. You're gonna get beat up quite a bit and whatnot. You may try to come with it, and you may deliver some, but eventually your body is going to begin to break
Mm-hmm.
down. That's the physics of the game. But I mean, you understand it, and everything you were speaking about is the things that, again, when since I've been able to give myself this, been able to have this kind of time to be able to step back out of the game and have to just go right back into it, or rush into it or just go do it just because, like, people telling me I should, but just really watching it, it really made me step back and say, man, like maybe this is, maybe this ain't, for me, because I would probably be that one that's, unorthodox where they saying, well, you got to tell them you got to hit like this. And guys, and I'll be like, listen, destroy anything that moves across from you and we'll handle the rest of it later. Say what
Right.
they ain't gonna want to hear all that. And they ain't the way that you should be talking. But I'm like, if I gotta change, all of that, and I get it again, that's why, I kind of stay away from it because to change, to mold yourself to it, to identify with something that you like, man, like I just don't understand. This is not, we should just, like you say, let's just play flag then. Like let's just literally just put on shells and let's just play flag or like because you telling me that you can't hit them. I'd rather for you to hit me up here, And again, I'm not speaking on cause I know how the severity of the
Absolutely.
collisions are, but I'd rather for you to hit me up here, hit me in my kneecaps. I used to see some of my DBs tear up some of those receivers in their knees and stuff, and I used to be like, or tight ends, and I used to be like, man, I like you. I like doing when like guys like Ronnie Lott and Steve Aikwater or Troy Park, like them guys, they come and they just completely like hitting you from your chest. Anything above your waistline is gonna be completely gone. And I love that and whatnot. Opposed to like now seeing even seeing the other team offensive guys get hit in their knees. I'm like, oh no, man. I'm like, because ACL and a concussion. I'll probably I'd rather take neither.
Well,
But you get what I'm saying.
and listen, I know 100% because back in the day, the cardinal sin or the cardinal rule amongst football players was hit me anywhere, but don't hit me on my legs and mess with my money. You know what I'm saying? Because I get an ACL, I get something torn, and I can't come back from it. It was just a known thing. That whole thing, and they flipped that whole thing on its head. They don't want you to hit guys, from the shoulders up, but they don't care when a tight end is running across the field. He catches a ball, and you got a DB that's giving up 50 pounds on him, and the DB is going. I mean, he's actually going for the leg. He's going for the knees because realistically, that's the only way that he can get him on the ground. To be honest with you, he's not going to run up
Mm-hmm.
there and wrap him up. But it's almost like they would rather you tear somebody's ACL than to hit a guy from the shoulder pads up. It just, to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because now you're messing with guys, the longevity of guys' career, and you're also messing with, their long-term health because, as well as I do, you've been through them surgeries. When you walk away from them surgeries, that don't mean them surgeries walk away from you. Them surgeries with you forever. There are some days that I get up, and I can feel those 13 years of playing in the NFL, and I can feel those 6 surgeries that I have. I have a lot of good days, but I have some days, man, where I feel them years and I feel them surgeries, man.
No, no. To everything that you were saying, I know I always say there's yin and yang to both sides. The positive and negative. To me, that's why I just feel like football was a gladiator sport, and it's just like as Denzel said, and remember the Titans, just let them play, like let them play, and from there, hey, if you get carried off, like for whatever reason, like then that's just the game of football. But to like you say, like physics, to be moving that fast and to say, hey, now you gotta get timid because make sure that you don't hit a certain. Oh man, they because that's when your body. And that's when I think injuries are more prevalent when you have to now. You have to start thinking about it. It's another one, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, when that, like, hey, you catch this ball across the middle, like I'm gonna go through you, and I'm gonna see you up in this. Like it's just a mentality that you have, and now it's
Yeah.
like you gotta go and make sure that you and so yeah, man,
Yeah.
I enjoyed.
Football is a game of reaction, man. I mean, when it's, you know, you condition yourself physically, and then you study and prepare yourself to play the game all out in a way that you don't have to think. The defense is called. I got this on run. I got this on pass. Let me make sure these big guys up here are lined up where they're supposed to be lined up. Now let me lock in on my keys and let's go. And it's just reaction.
Hmm.
Anytime that I've been on the football field and I'm thinking, well, if he stepped there and I stepped, I'm no, I'm beat. You know, so football is a game of reaction. So I mean, even when you're hitting, it's a game of reaction. You know, if a guy can't see you back in the day, I'm gonna try to undress him. You know, plain and simple. If he see me, I know he gonna give me a little something. So I got to break down and make sure that I make the tackle. All of that's just a part of the game, and that's a reaction. That's not something that I'm trying to think through, not in the least little bit. You know.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so let's talk some 49ers, man. What in the world are the San Francisco 49ers going to do at quarterback? You know, so you have
Man.
listen, Jimmy Garoppolo had a good day. They sprinkle in some Trey Lance, you know. I mean, Jimmy drive him all the way down there, and they put Trey Lance in the game to throw the 5-yard touchdown. I mean, sooner or later, that's got to play in Jimmy's head. And I know that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan could care less. Their whole thing is the team and what the team is doing and what the growth of the team. But something is at work here. And as long as Trey Lance stays healthy and they continue to feed him a little bit of football, something's gonna have to change in San Francisco,
Man. Seth, it sounds like a relationship problem maybe brewing up over there, huh? Where you like, well, how long you gonna be able to have your cake? How long you gonna be able to have your cake and eat it too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much essentially what it appears to be. And to me, I saw something similar, but not the same. You know, and again, I don't like comparing situations, people, but the situation is similar in having two quarterbacks, and you start seeing one, you know, one that they want, and then one uh, that is proven, and so, and the fans are really. I mean, the fans like they weigh in a lot, and so at this moment in this juncture, to be truthful with you, I didn't watch the game, but I got a lot of clips, right? So I saw different clips, and just tuck in and hearing some of the guys speak on the game, hearing people, fans, because like you just take in all the analytical data, and then you
Right.
see what you saw, and thinking about it now, like I feel like that you're right. Either the 49ers are playing an amazing chess game at this moment. Not maybe even just checkers. Maybe it's as simple as checkers. But I don't, like you said, I don't know how it's going to. I think we know how maybe they want it to end up, but how it may play out. Like you're right. I don't. Man, I'm kind of tongue tied myself at this moment.
No, listen, I get it, man. I get it because when I look at Garoppolo, I see a guy. You go back, to the year they made it to the Super Bowl. It was very evident to me at that point in time that Kyle Shanahan had lost confidence in him because their two games in the playoffs, they ran the ball twice as much as they threw it. I mean, they were just running through people. I'm trying to remember who the two running backs. I know one of the guys was Raheem Mostert, and he got hurt last week.
And
I
Matt
believe. Yeah,
Breida, I think it
Breida,
was.
man. I mean, they were just doing work, man. I think both of them
Yeah,
dudes had 100 yards each in both the divisional game and the NFC Championship game. And then they
yeah.
got to the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and then they decided they was going to throw the ball. I'm like, what are y'all doing? I mean, it's just like to this day, man. To this day, I look back at that Super Bowl, and I'm like, Kyle Shanahan threw that damn Super Bowl away, man. Because if they would have just stayed true, I mean, because they was playing a Chiefs team at that time that could not stop the run. They couldn't stop it. They wanted them boys to throw the ball. And they came out and they put the ball in Jimmy Garoppolo's hand in that game, and they wound up losing that Super Bowl. I think it was at that point that they realized that, we might have a problem that we might have to address. And then, the injuries and all the other things that's going along with it. But you're so cap committed to a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, you just can't pull the plug because you're not going to get the type of value back that you put into him, so to
Yeah.
speak. But it's obvious that they earmarked and they traded up to get Trey Lance. That's the guy that they like. They probably see him as the future. I mean, when is the future going to be? Next week? 2 weeks from now? The future going to be this year. I don't know when, how, what the circumstances are going to be, but the future for Trey Lance will be before the 2021 season is over. It has to be.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot. Again, that's a lot of mixed emotions. I feel like whether they're spoken about or whether they stay hidden, that's going on there. Because, like you said, but I think he probably already Jimmy saying he already felt this and already knew like this was going to be possibly like the outcome of what is to be like when they moved up and all this stuff in the off season. They were talking about getting drafting a quarterback and everything. So I mean, Jimmy seems to be an amazing teammate, and again, you have to have some kind of love for it because there's love and then there's going to be ego. Like there's an ego and then there's that. It's going to be a fine line, and I feel like Jimmy may be the guy that can tread that. So it may work, for what they needed to work for. My biggest thing though, my biggest thing is I don't care who's on the quarterback. I mean, who's on the center or who's taking those snaps. That defense, if they can have a decent defense to a good, they need a good defense to a great defense. I don't know if they ever be what they were the year that they went to that Super Bowl because that was
Right.
really a special group of kids out there, like just young fellas, young men out there, like playing ball, and that defensive line was amazing. And they got a pretty young defensive line now, and think can be they're gonna get even better, like you said, just one game. But I think that's gonna be the key. And I think as long as Jimmy continues to be the good old, like, the good old boy they want him to be, they'll continue to run that little dynamic quarterback situation because I do see it having some kind of, um, I do see it working because, like you said, most people probably thought he was going to get in, he's going to do the little quarterback power, him and the gun, but they didn't, they done the little, and then pass
Right.
it.
Right.
So, yeah. It's
Well,
gonna
I
be
mean, listen,
interesting.
they could utilize those two quarterbacks in a lot of ways, like the Saints did with Drew Brees and Taysom Hill. Um, I'm not risking the number 3 overall pick along the lines that the Saints were willing to risk Taysom Hill. I'm not willing to risk his body that way. But you can do some things, with Trey Lance that you might not necessarily be able to do with a Jimmy Garoppolo, and just as long as he can keep his head where it needs to be, and he got 160 million reasons why he would he
I
would.
know, right? I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's 160 million reasons why he would want to keep his head in the
Yeah.
right place. Um, it could work. You talked about the defensive line, and the game coming up this week is going to be such a great matchup. They get Bosa back off an injury. You got D Ford over on the other side. I'm trying to remember the two guys that are in the middle, but I know you guys have got one stout defensive tackle in the middle. A young guy that's really, really,
Kinlaw is it
yeah,
Kinlaw? Is he?
Kinlaw.
So he what? Did he play last week? I didn't know if
I
he
think
was
so.
healthy. Oh,
I'm not
okay,
sure.
okay. I
I,
didn't know
I
if he
think
was.
I think he played, but when you talk about this matchup that's coming back, like I know, man. You played the game. The battle is won in the trenches. You know, if you
Hmm.
don't have good offensive line play and you don't have good defensive line play, it's hard to win when you can't control the line of scrimmage. I don't care how good your linebackers are. If you don't have guys in front of you that's holding their gaps, that's holding those double teams. They're getting blown in your lap, when you got them double teams. Now you got to come down and take them off. But at the same time, they got to be able to hold their ground long enough for you to decipher what's going on to come down and get them off. So if you
Hmm.
don't have those horses up front, so this game, the on Sunday, the 49ers against the Eagles is going to be a major matchup when you think about, you know, um, the 49ers defensive line against the Eagles offensive line. Now, the Eagles, in my opinion, have one of the best offensive lines in the league. The last couple of years they've been injured. You got Lane Johnson at right tackle. You got Brandon Brooks, at right guard. And arguably, when those two guys are healthy, they might be the best two tackle guard combo in the NFL. You got one of the most athletic centers in the league in Jason Kelsey. His biggest flaw is when you put a 300-pounder, a 325-pounder on his head, he's going to have problems with that because he's a little on the light side. But, man, you watch this kid on film, and, when they want to run their bubble screens and their and running back screens, and they want to get on the outside, they can run a toss play. And if he don't have a guy on his head, they'll pull him from the center position. The only guys that we used to see doing that was the Pouncey brothers, and I'm trying to remember the other guy that played for the Steelers before Pouncey got there. They were the only ones that was athletic enough to do that. That's going to be a major matchup, how the offensive and the defensive line for the 49ers, the offensive line, for the Eagles, and then you move over to when you flip it the other way around, the Eagles' defensive line was very dominant last week. That is the strength of the defense. Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Brandon Graham, and, over on the right side, you got, this battle going on between Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett for the starting job. But, it's going to be a battle of the trenches. Who can control the line of scrimmage and who's going to be, diligent enough to continue to run the ball to be able to control things. Because if you can run it, in my opinion, that opens up your entire playbook. If you can't run it, now you one-dimensional. If I'm a defensive coordinator, I got a plethora of ways to make your quarterback real uncomfortable if you can't run the football.
So what you saying then, Seth? Or are you obviously I'm assuming you're gonna be biased and pick your squad. But who are you picking? Because I'm listening to you. I'm like, I'm like,
listen. I wish that I could. If you could go into, my comments over my viewer comments over here on the side. The one thing that I'm not is I'm not biased. If I thought that the Eagles were going to get their ass kicked in the trenches this week, I would flat out tell you the Eagles don't stand a damn chance. Okay. But what I'm saying is that you got a good defensive line and a good offensive line on both sides, on both of these teams. And something's got to give. Something's got to give. Something's got to give. Who going to run the ball? Who going to consistently run the ball so you can control it, man?
As I was listening to you, I mean, you was doing such a great job of breaking them down. And as I was just breaking down your offensive set, and as you were just speaking, I was thinking if I'm the 49ers, I most definitely have to get some kind of pressure from my two interior defensive linemen. They got, like you say, they have to be a presence and they have to be stout. And not only that, you have to make sure that Bosa and D Ford are able to. I don't know if they're gonna be able to get. I just let them boys play ball, but it's something about they're gonna have to. Them two interior defensive guys are gonna have to be very stout, and it's gonna be, and they're gonna have to allow those linebackers to flow and play because I feel like the running back you guys have, he's a pretty good Sanders,
yeah, Miles Sanders.
And the way you're talking about that offensive line, I feel like that could be that, like you say, I think that could be the difference in the game. That 49ers defense is going to have to that interior defensive line, as always, like you say.
Hey, listen, it ain't gonna be no walk. I'm telling you this right now. It's gonna be one of these classic offensive defensive line battles on both sides of the ball. Listen, you got Bosa lined up. If Bosa's lined up at right defensive end, he's about to play against this kid Jordan Mailata. Now, 4 years ago, Jordan Mailata was playing rugby. They brought him in as a 7th round project, and they built him to a place where, he beat out the 2019 or 18, 21st pick overall. The Eagles drafted a tackle out of Washington to be the heir apparent at left tackle. This kid, 4 years later, just beat him out, and the Eagles just signed him to a $64 million extension. Now, the 21st pick is the backup. Okay, Jordan Mailata, this dude is 6'8", 350 pounds, and got feet like you and me, man. I mean,
I think I saw who you're talking about. I think I saw. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. I want to see Nick Bosa, the great Nick Bosa line up against Jordan Mailata. I want to see the battle. I want to see D Ford line up, and I know what Nick will do. Nick will line up on either side. Wherever he think he can get to the quarterback. He gonna flop sides from side to side.
Yeah.
D Ford will do the same. But you go over there and you got a perennial All-Pro over on the other side. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not being biased one way or the other. I'm interested in the competition. I'm trying to figure out, okay, who's going to win. Because when you look at all of this and you look at the interior, defensive linemen for the 49ers, listen, they built that thing the right way. They drafted, first rounders, boom, 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 at the defensive line position because they wanted to build from the trenches. They built the offensive line, in a way where they could be dominant, where they could run the ball, and you could bring in an extra tackle. You could go 3 tight ends and 2 tight ends and just smash people and open up the playbook. So it's going to be really interesting, how all of this plays out. And I'm just, I'm making conversation. I ain't making no predictions yet. I won't do that. I won't do that till Sunday, man.
See, I don't know. Now I think that going back and think about what we just talked about, the 2 matches that I see is if the 49ers can run the ball on the Eagles defense. If the 49ers can run the ball on the Eagles defense, I think that would be huge because then that will open up some play action because, like I said, I think that's the strength of the 49ers. They got to be able to run and get that penetration and then, boom, hit you with something. And then I feel like on defense, they that corner, they just lost one of their starting corners. He's the best corner, I believe, out of the corners they have, and they just lost him. And I know that you guys have a phenomenal rookie. He just getting started. And he ain't no joke, man. I think people talk about him being slim, but I'm like, no, this cat right here, man, he got something in him. So they got him. And you talked about them having the athletic offensive line that they have. I could see them maybe doing a lot of screens or just quicks and getting either ball to, like they say, that Smith, that receiver, or getting those offensive linemen to make both of them change directions or something. Because it's gonna be pretty. I'm like you, man. It's gonna be a pretty good matchup. I'm looking forward to it myself. I'm gonna catch this one.
Hey, listen, man. I like, listen. I've been calling for the Eagles to draft, a franchise level, linebacker for years, man. I mean, I look at this kid, Fred Warner, man. I love the way that he plays the game. I mean, he runs like a safety. When he gets to the ball, he got a little bit of attitude, and you can do a multitude of things with him. When you make those comparisons, if you went position by positions, you got Deebo Samuels, but I'm trying to think, okay, what else do you got? You got Kittle's back, and he 100%. So you got those weapons, but to your point, you got to run the football in order, and that's just the way the 49ers offense is set up. They're predicated on being able to run the ball, and then you can go play action pass, you can go bootlegs, you can go all this misdirection stuff to get the defense, off kilter. The Eagles last week, what they did is they came out and they threw the hell out of the ball in the first half, and then they locked in on the run in the second half. They, went in a 2-minute offense right before halftime. They, Jalen Hurts marched the team down, scored a touchdown right before halftime. And when they got the ball back after the first possession, from the Falcons in the second half, they just came out and just imposed their will and just ran the ball on them. And I'm old school, man. I just always believe that, even from a defensive standpoint, if you can't stop the run, then you ain't gonna be able to stop nothing. If you don't try to run, if you don't run the ball, then you're gonna be limited as to what you can do. It's one thing for a defense to make an offense one-dimensional because they've shut down the run. It's a whole different thing when the coaching staff makes their own offense one-dimensional by refusing to run the ball. And I just think that it's going to be interesting, the game plan. Nick Sirianni is a new head coach. You got Jalen Hurts that's going into his second year. He got 4 starts last year, 3.5 realistically. And, he's had his first, first real start as a starting quarterback this year and played extremely well. I think his success is going to have a lot to do with the play calling and how they set up, how they do things. You know, against a team like the Falcons, yeah, you can come out and try to establish the pass in the beginning of the game and then maybe fade to, more of a run game because you got a little bit of a lead in the second half. But you come out against the 49ers and go pass happy, and you get them guys over there to thinking, hey, they ain't going to run it. Ain't no need of us even acting like they're going to run it. Let's just go get the quarterback. Now you create mayhem on your side, and you make it easier, for the defensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans, to call whatever it is that he needs to call, to draw up schemes to cause mayhem and trouble for your quarterback.
Yeah, I would if I was Domenico, like depending on again, I don't know why the two interior guys are not coming to me, and that kind of makes me nervous, and that's on my part. I just haven't done my due diligence to, find out who them guys are or pay attention and see them. But you're going to either like I say, either they're gonna have to be, they're gonna have to play phenomenal ball, or you're gonna have to like blitz. But then I don't know if you're gonna be able to blitz because again, you're gonna have a new corner. Like it's something about not having no corners, man. It's one thing if you can have a good defensive line and they can get after the quarterback. Now your corners can be, okay. But I don't like again, they don't have that 2015 defensive line that's tall like that. I don't feel like they can be that you just gotta worry about them guys. I think they may have some weak points, but again, the 49ers offense, they're gonna have to, come with it. But it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Well, listen, my brother, I'm not even gonna ask you for a prediction, and I ain't gonna give one. I'm just gonna say, man, listen, it's been a joy to have you on my show for the last hour. And I told you it'd be an hour, so I'm gonna cut it right here. I've enjoyed the conversation, man. We can go on, for another hour, but I'm gonna be respectful of your time. Listen, I tell my guests every single week, our most valuable commodity is our time. So I thank you for giving me the last 62 minutes of your time, man. And it's been a joy to, have an opportunity to talk to you. I look forward to connecting with you, on some of the Nirvana stuff and whatever else is going on. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to hang out with you today, man.
Likewise, Seth, man. I really, really appreciate it, and it's been an honor. Thank you for having me.
You got it. All right, guys, that's the show for today. I want you guys to give a hand to my guest today, Mr. Patrick Willis. Listen, take care of each other and be good to each other, but most important, make sure you love each other. I'll see you guys right back here next week on the Seth Joyner Show, breaking down the 49ers-Eagles game. Take care.